Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stuart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look. Well, good evening, everyone, and thanks for tuning in and listening. We have Larry on board on his mountaintop. Hi, Larry. How you doing?
Hey, Trump, just watching this UV. It's been hot today and a lot of UV coming down.
Yeah, it's really getting bad, and people are not paying any attention to UV for whatever reason. And even though they know that it's really hot and bad, they're not paying much attention to it. I got an email from someone, and I'd like to read it before we get rolling. Stuart, please tell the people here close to Indianapolis, and I want your comments on this, Larry. Many people are being taken to the hospital for dizziness. I woke up yesterday and I could not get out of bed because of dizziness. I then got help, went on to a chiropractor appointment. I almost fell off the table. It was when I laid down on my right side. My doctor said, oh my gosh, I can't tell you how many people have come in here for the last 2 weeks, and every time they go on their right side, they get real dizzy. So I left and went to the hospital. They told me blood pressure was normal and heart rate. They couldn't tell me what was wrong. It has lasted all night. Just now, an elderly layman called 911 for his wife. My husband went down there and the same thing, normal blood pressure, heart rate. They took her to the hospital anyway. My husband told him she will be okay because of what happened to me. Is this from the planetary alignment? I just know it, and it is frightening. I am praying for her and my area for this to be lifted off of us in Jesus' name. What do you think? Is this related to sun? Is this related to UV? The one point I would ask everybody down there, check and see if they're putting 5G towers up. Because a bunch of firemen out in California, they put some up near a fire station or several fire stations, and they reported dizziness and anomalies in their thinking and everything else. And as soon as they've forced the removal of those 5G towers, they went back to normal. What do you think's going on?
Well, we do know that the sun is anomalous, and a lot of stuff with the sun affects people. We also know that we have these gravity waves coming through that are causing problems, but there seems to be more and more warnings and distress coming from this 5G network that they're talking about. My guess would be where they live there, they really need to check into the 5G situation local next to them. Something's happening to people, though. I've never heard of so many sick people and people that are having distress as we're seeing lately.
Yeah, and it's not just there. I mean, you're getting reports from everywhere, and it makes you wonder whether this is UV-related, solar-related. As we know, all the planets are now on one side of the sun. I think they remain there until like August 20th or something like that. But I'm not sure that would cause it, but it could very easily. And it's just kind of weird. And we do know that they've been playing around with some sort of a weapon. Remember in Cuba how all those people got sick that were working for the embassy? And they reported the same kind of thing?
Yeah, and that's happening at more and more countries, too. It's not just Cuba. It's this is the scenario of people with brain injuries now seem to be occurring, at different places around the world. But, Stuart, one thing that does we've seen so much strange behavior in animals.
Yes.
We do know that the electromagnetic affects birds and mammals and probably humans to a great degree. So we just have to. There's an onslaught against humanity, Stuart.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, and we don't know who's orchestrating it either. I mean, we do know that anomalies are coming, strange sights in the heavens, and all this stuff that the Lord warned us about. And in some of those instances, he doesn't really say who's doing it. We do know the comment that those who rise up against me and who destroy the earth is most likely a reference to the rich men of the earth, the Illuminati, and the powers that be that are attempting to bring in their new world order and set up their fake Messiah. So, and they do have technology that we probably have no clue about. And it may be that in that particular area, and this is how they operate too, by the way, they'll do something over an area like a chemtrail thing, over a very specific area. Then what they do is they monitor the hospital admissions, doctor admissions, and find out what effect it had on people. And that may be exactly what's going on in Indianapolis. They are testing some kind of a weapon, and then they'll monitor and see, well, how many people showed up that were sick? And that's how they fine-tune stuff. You got to remember, the Illuminati hates humanity. They hate you. They want to kill you. I know people can't kind of get their mind around that, but all you got to do is read the documents. They've openly said they want a huge population reduction. And there's a number of ways they can do it. And, probably do most of it undetected. Chemical warfare is a little harder because somebody absolutely did chemical warfare. But biological warfare is something else again. Gee, we just don't understand why everybody got this vicious flu and millions died. Well, they understand it perfectly because that's what they want. They want a huge population reduction. You got the Georgia Guidestones, number one, and then you can go to Deagle.com where they have a massive population reduction for the United States. Many millions of people. I think it's like 250 million people are slated to perish before 2025. How does Deagle know that? All that sort of thing. So anyway, to answer that, yes, I think Larry's absolutely right. Check out the 5G network. See if they are actually installing that stuff, because that has had grave psychological, mental effects to it. And I think, again, they know that. They're denying it. They're going to force this thing on people. And anyway, it is what it is. But thanks for that email. And, folks, if you've got stuff like this, by all means, send it to Enigma, ENIGMA, at true, drop the E, TRU, insight.com. And we'll put it on the air. This is the only way we're going to be able to beat these people and notify people that something's going on in a specific area. So I really appreciate that. And, bad times. Bad times are coming. Anyway, where do we want to start, Larry? That was a good start. Maybe what is going on over there in Israel? We had Tu B'Av, blood red moon, Mars in conjunction with the moon, and now we have Israeli forces raid the Al-Aqsa, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing Aqsa Mosque in pursuit of Palestinian youth. After clashes, I would just remind everybody that when they did that before, what's his name? Not Assad, but
Abbas, yeah,
was furious that they did this. What's your take on this? It's the third holiest shrine in Islam.
Well, that's true, and of course, I suppose if a Jew goes into the Islamic shrine, that's going to cause spiritual problems inside that Islamic shrine for sure. So, yeah, there'll probably be a lot of kickback, but Israel's under the guns right now, even physically speaking, and there's a war going on within Israel and outside Israel and all around Israel, and it's odd that the moon sign, is tonight, which over there it's already probably dark, and that's ongoing.
Done.
Yeah, and it's odd though that they would pick that specific timing to actually storm the Al-Aqsa Mosque, in Jerusalem, and there'll probably be problems over that. But with the problems we've already got, I don't know how they could lessen it. Hardly. It's everybody wants Israel dead. That's the point.
Yeah, and you're right. To do this, I think this is a very evil omen of what is soon going to come. We got a lot of other news when it comes to that sort of thing. They are getting ready for big war, and everybody is getting ready. So I don't know. I think it's we're looking at bad news. Here's an interesting article, and I did not realize this. Get your take on it. If you're experiencing a spell of bad luck, many people may ask you the same question. Is Mercury in retrograde? Retrograde, yeah. Astrologers believe the planet is to blame for bringing periods of misfortune down to Earth. It's happening again Thursday. Well, today's Friday, so it was yesterday it started. Mercury is expected to integrate, on Thursday it will remain until August 19th. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah,
all in the same period of time.
Yeah, I'm not too much on planets and bad luck, but Stuart, it's really interesting the lineup of all these planets going on at the moment.
Yes. I mean, astrology is obviously occultic to the core. It's the perversion of the Lord's way of doing things. But it's interesting when you get all sides coming together, because 9th of Av is a period of bad omens, and then we have that one. UN Ambassador Haley, Gaza terrorists burn Israeli fields and forests 10 times area of Paris, and the world remains silent. Well, according to what I can find out, they're starting up again with this. Is that correct?
Well, that is correct. And really, Hamas now is reportedly even told the UN that they're going to full war with Israel.
Wow. So this is basically an announcement then, I guess.
Yeah, it seems to be, sure.
What about Soleimani? Where's he in all this? I know that they have introduced another 80,000 Iranian troops into Syria, which brings their total up to 160,000 troops, that's quite a military arm. Armed with all kinds of missiles. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's actually more troops probably than Israel has on its northern border facing them, because Israel, called up 150,000. And what's interesting, though, is Soleimani, just before a lot of the last little bit of deciding to go to war by Hamas and the Palestinians, Soleimani was in Gaza and meeting with Hamas. And right after he left, went back to Syria, then they decided, okay, we're going to war. So I would think the, I guess you could say, proxy war, if you will, with Iran is just beginning. And it appears, though, that Hezbollah, the Syrians, the Iranians, Hamas, I mean, Israel's circled. Matter of fact, there's a report came out today from Bill Koenig. He says that Israel now is prepared to fight a multi-front war, and the timing is now.
Wow. Well, isn't that interesting in view of the 27th and the blood red moon, which is always an evil omen for Israel. a solar eclipse is an omen, a bad omen usually for Gentile nations. But lunar eclipses are basically a message to Israel. So when you tie the lunar tetrads of 2014, 2015 and bounce over to the one we're having right now, that's a message. I believe personally, and you can elaborate on it, but when you have a tetrad, one begins on Passover, and then it ends on Tabernacles. It happens over again, and then it happens over again, and then over again. It seems to me that's a message from the Lord that I am going back to the feast days. I am going back to the Abrahamic and the Davidic covenants, and so Israel, you better get ready. And pointing to the feast days that maybe they should go back in there and take a good look at what this is all about. It's, you know, these are clues. Every one of those feast days is a clue about who Messiah is. And evidently they're not too able to read clues. But I think all of this is soon going to change because, boy, it sure looks like we're on the cusp of some big events. I just, you know, when you and I and Augusto were on his show today, I mean, I think he feels the same thing, that we're getting close to something really, really big, and it's just going to come about, and who knows when the war itself, the hot war that goes totally out of control, actually begins. And there's a deal here about Trump. Here's a headline. Donald Trump could be ready to order a strike against Iran, Australian government figures say. And it's kind of an interesting thing. Senior figures in the Turnbull government have told the ABC they believe the United States is prepared to bomb Iran's nuclear facilities, perhaps as early as next month. Well, we're right on the verge of next month. And that Australia is poised to help identify possible targets. Senior government figures say Australian defense facilities would likely play a role in identifying possible targets. But another senior source in security emphasizes there is a difference between providing intelligence and active targeting. Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull says he has no reason to believe the United States is preparing for a confrontation. But it comes amidst intense saber-rattling by U.S. President Donald Trump and his Iranian counterpart. What's your take on this kind of an article, and why are they dropping that now?
Well, I would have to say, Stuart, that it's not out in our mainstream news much yet, but it probably will get there. You know, as we were talking on Augusto's show today, and we were talking about Saudi Arabia and Salman and Trump and Netanyahu, and it's very interesting because Salman and Trump wanted to build an Arab NATO, if you will, or an Arab army to go against Iran. Now it's odd. We was on that show, and since then, believe it or not, I've seen a report on One America News that says that some of the Arab states that are around Saudi Arabia and that region have found that Iran is using drones to spy on their military bases, and they say now that apparently the Trump administration has notified Salman to kick this Arab army into high gear, and that just tells me that this thing there's a countdown going on apparently. Next month would be a good time while Trump's still in office.
Yeah, we could get to that in a little bit because they're moving as fast as they can to get rid of him. This is from Hal Turner's World News. Israel versus Hamas. Hamas has informed the United Nations envoy, and I can't pronounce the name, of its refusal to accept a ceasefire with Israel. Hamas is already making preparations for what they call will be a massive, coordinated attack, the likes of which neither Israel nor the world has ever seen, kind of borrowing the language of Donald Trump. Because isn't that basically what he told the Iranians? Don't be threatening us, or you will see something you've never seen before. A lot of people probably think that, this is the way Trump does his diplomacy. Threaten you're going to bash them over the head with a bat and hope they'll kowtow. I'm not so sure Iran is going to kowtow. I think Iran is beginning to figure out. They've watched Libya. They watched Iraq. They obviously know all about General Clark of NATO when he was told by people that, there were seven nations that the United States was going to topple. Why would you wait for that? Why wouldn't you, if things started to get really dicey, why would you not attempt to preempt and see if you could do something? What do you think?
Well, I'm beginning to wonder, Trump uses that rhetoric. However, he will fire missiles. So, I don't believe anybody believes he won't. Interestingly enough, Hamas seems to be using the language that's coming out of Iran, which really would mean a massive, massive missile attack on Israel, from multiple locations, which, they would be stretched all across, the surrounding areas of Israel, because you've got thousands of missiles Hezbollah has in Lebanon. You've got the Iranian and Syrian missiles in Syria. You've got missiles in Hamas. And matter of fact, Soleimani was just in, Gaza just before all this really jumped into high gear. So I think Hamas's rhetoric, even though it sounds loud, it could be, somewhat accurate, because Iran does have a plan, and Soleimani even warned we're just waiting for the order from Tehran to launch. And what they're talking about is a massive, massive missile attack that Israel couldn't stop. When you put, thousands of missiles in the air, Israel can't stop all those missiles. So that could be what, they've got lined out.
Well, I know some of the missiles are much more accurate than they were. And the last report I heard was something like they've got 150,000 missiles that they can launch. But there's no way Israel can survive that. So then they have to go immediately on the offensive. And I don't know what their military mind says, but I know what I would do. I would take out Damascus immediately. And then I would go after everybody in Syria and everybody in Iran. And it almost seems like maybe Trump has given the go-ahead to Israel, go do what you have to do. And it's kind of like, where is Putin in all this? Now, I know that Bibi says you betrayed us. You didn't do what you said you were going to do. And so wasn't there a meeting between Israel and Russia, and they more or less told Russia to go fly a kite? They weren't going to believe them. They weren't going to trust them.
Yeah, that happened.
Yeah, go ahead.
That actually happened. Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, was sent by Putin and his delegation to try to work a deal with Netanyahu, and Russia, since they're not able apparently to get the Iranians to leave Syria, they made a deal that they would keep the Iranians 100 kilometers away from the Israeli border, which is probably about 60 miles. And Netanyahu says no, he wouldn't accept. Netanyahu will not accept any Iranians in Syria. So, there's really no remedy for all the, balance and counterbalance and all this. But see what's happened. is 20 or 30,000 Syrian refugees were forced down to the Golan border by the Iranians and Hezbollah and the Syrian armies. And now, because Israel was not able to fire on them because of all the refugees and what the world would think, you've got Syria now standing right on the border, basically, with Israel at the Golan. So you've already got all those armies you're talking about within shooting distance. So it's really critical where we're at right now. Matter of fact, Stuart, this thing could start at any time and could pop off this weekend very possibly. But, then again, it might last until August maybe.
Yeah, I guess nobody knows, but certainly the omen of Mars and the blood red moon are indicative of something happening very, very quickly. I mean, we are running out of 2018 and the 70th year from Israel becoming a nation. And the number 70, folks, if you haven't looked it up, you should. It has huge significance in the past, and I guess there's no reason to suspect that the Lord will not keep that concept alive. And if that is true, we have very little time, because September 11th, actually September 10th, is the start of their new year. And it ends on, trumpets ends on the 11th, 9/11. And I find that extremely significant, that it's 9/11. And there are other things that have happened that kind of border on, this has got to be orchestrated by the Lord, because you can't run those kind of numbers without being a mathematical genius, which, of course, the Lord is super genius when it comes to mathematics. And, in fact, that's the one proof that the Bible is absolutely true for skeptics out there. They should go get the book that Jerry Lucas and Del Washburn wrote. It's called Theomatics. And it proves beyond a doubt that the Lord wrote the entire book from Genesis all the way through to the book of Revelation. It goes into it far more than even the Bible codes go into it. That the mathematics behind it all is just stunning. And the odds are literally quadrillions to one that could have happened by each individual writing a certain thing. And, of course, as Larry knows, most of the people in the Old Testament didn't even know each other. And the Bible was put together, the Old Testament, over a period of over 1,200 years, I think. Is that right, Larry? I mean, it's a long period of time.
Oh, that's true. And it's, put together through multiple generations. And like you said, most of them didn't know each other.
Yeah, and yet you have this mathematical continuity that is just absolutely incredible. And yet the people poo-poo it, not understanding that the Lord is the only one who could mathematically put that together over a period of such time with people not knowing each other, and the mathematical continuity is still there. That's when people tell me, well, Peter was an imposter, Jesus Christ is the Antichrist, and on and on and on they go. And these books shouldn't even be in the Bible. The mathematical continuity makes them all absolute liars, or they're just terribly deceived, one or the other. But so when you come up to this and you look at the timelines, I don't see how we can't be on the very, very edge of things going, how do we call it, going south, I guess one could say. And here's another one, Larry. Saudi Arabia is halting all oil shipments through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait after continued militant targeting of vessels. What's that going to start doing to oil prices?
Well, it's going to cause them to rise. And, of course, you well know that Iran is the very one behind the threats to shut down the oil shipments. And as a matter of fact, the Houthi rebels in Yemen is one factor that Iran has tried to use to attack, either our ships or especially Saudi Arabian shipping and freighters. So this is going to be part of the reason that Salman may get very involved in pulling together this Arab coalition, or Arab NATO, if you will, quick as possible.
Well, the longer the wait, the worse it's going to be, and they may have already decided that. I did read an article where rumor had it that Trump had already decided to go to war. Then we get this thing from the insiders in the Australian government. He's decided to go to war, blah, blah, blah. Well, you just mentioned Iran. It says in this article, the government of Saudi Arabia is halting all oil shipments which would customarily originate on its west coast for travel via the Red Sea. Iran is implicated in this action, and covert intelligence sources say it is directly related to the pending cutoff of Iranian oil shipments when economic sanctions resume. So there you go. And you couple this then with the ceasefire collapse in Israel, where they say they're going to have an escalation of the Molotov balloon attacks and enhanced riots at the border. Well, none of that sounds too good, does it?
Well, no, especially after all that the Israelis have had to put up with till now. And if you couple that, let me read you, talking about the UN, let me read you something here. So here's, listen to it. It's Yahoo News report today. It says UN bloc of developing countries elects Palestine as the next leader country in a snub to U.S. and Israel. And it further goes on to say that the United Nations bloc elects...
Blame for this. And the Christians put him in power. In fact, there are little few articles coming out about how the Christians are the ones who put Donald Trump in power. So they're going to get blamed for all this as well, which sends a signal to me anyway that this war is going to be horrific in its nature. To get the entire world to come up against this little nation of Israel. I mean, it's amazing when you look at Israel on a globe how small it is, and yet the Lord said, with you, I'm going to bring all the nations of the world down. And it seems like we're getting more and more signals. Okay, we had the blood moon and Mars. Then we had this rock. We didn't get into this on Augusto's show. What's your take on this rock falling out of the wall, almost killing a woman? I guess she was protected of the Lord, basically. But what's your take on this?
Well, there's two things, and I like your opinion on both of them, really. Number one, ironically, today, and this is the day of the, the moon deal and Mars and all of that. Today, there was reported a 3.7, and then they said a 3.6 earthquake in the Dead Sea region, and actually the Dead Sea, 9 miles north of Tiberias, Israel. And so you have, on the very day of the sign and all this other stuff, a very interesting, matter of fact, I was thinking about it because biblically, the people, original people of Israel were called, spiritually dead, if you will.
Yes.
And this struck. Now, I find it all telling, Spirit, that all of this began back with that cosmic sign that, we talked about. And,
yes.
We called it the pivot, actually. But once that started pivoting, it sped up. And now you've got part of the Western Wall crumbling and, falling off and almost killing people. And there's a Breaking Israel News had a report this morning, and they were saying that the rabbis had taken this as a sign of a warning.
Mm-hmm. They quote a scripture here, and it's in Habakkuk. And Habakkuk is one of the most interesting of the Bible, if people would read it, because it talks about the Antichrist, and it talks about how we go forth and spoil the nations and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, here's Habakkuk 2:11, which is kind of interesting. For a stone shall cry out from the wall.
Wow. Wow.
So there you go. And a rafter shall answer it from the woodwork. Okay, so now this is what they say. The rabbi of the Western Wall put out a call for soul searching after a massive stone fell from the structure on Monday. One Kabbalist mystic answered the call, bringing esoteric clues that the event signaled a permanent end to the Jewish exile and the beginning of the supernatural regeneration of the third temple. Well, that's what Trump's doing. That's what all of this is about. And Israel recently passed that they're a Jewish state. Well, a lot of people, said, well, so what? Well, actually, if you read what that law says, it's all about the rebuilding of the temple. It's just in code. Yeah, we have to now legally, all across Israel, we have to observe the Sabbath. We have to observe the Jewish feast days. We have to do this. We have to do that. Well, that is a clear sign. They're going back to the old rituals.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, and so what are the old rituals? Temple. The old sacrificial system. Because they don't believe in Messiah, that he fulfilled all of that. They've rejected that. So they don't have any choice but to go back to the law and law keeping and rituals, because they have rejected Messiah. And you can just see it happening. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's right in front of their face. And actually, it's right in front of the face of the whole world. So, the Lord is so merciful, though. He's given clues and clues and clues. But if you're not watching, you're never going to put it together. So, I don't know. But this is another part that they said. This occurred the day after the fast of Tishrei B'Av, which commemorates the destruction of the two Jewish temples on the Temple Mount. Remember where Jesus said, one stone upon another? There won't be. Is this not a sign of Messiah? What do you think? I just think this is a telltale sign that this is the end. We're at it.
Well, what's interesting, too, Stuart, is for the very first time, as you said, the government of Israel has actually put in effect a Jewish state. And remember, up to this point now, Israel was also involved with a lot of Arabs living in Israel. Now, they're proclaiming a Jewish state, which is different. And, of course, this has all happened since the pivot was made. And
is anybody there?
You what, it makes one wonder, because we have got signs from one end to the other. That's all we've done, Stuart, for almost 2 years now, is talk about
I don't even
signs.
know if I'm on myself.
And, of course, a lot of people say, why do you talk about things that never happen? But these things are happening, and that puts us in the season.
Well, it's gone dead, I guess.
And now I know Jews. And I know Messianic Jews, okay? And it's odd, because a lot of the Jews, they will laugh and shrug their shoulders and say of a Messianic Jew, which is, believes in Jesus or Yeshua.
No, what do I do?
Yeshua,
no, this thing's froze.
And they will say, well,
they can't get out of it.
Messianic Jews are really not Jews, and laugh. And so there you are. Basically, they've all
They're definitely
went
under siege.
officially on paper now.
How do we close this
to
down?
a Jewish state, that does not recognize Jesus Christ.
Okay, I'm going to hang up, see if it goes out. All right, I think I'm back on, but I'm going to have to try and call Larry from the show, unless he can. Let's see, I got to. We were cut off. There's no question about it. They don't like what we were talking about, and such is life. Anyway, let me try and call Larry, see if I can get him back on. Okay. 2, 3, 4. Nope, that doesn't seem to be working either. Let me try it again. Dialing, it says, but I'm not hearing anything. Here we go.
Hello?
You, I got you back.
Oh, okay, okay.
We're back on. This is too deliberate. Whenever you start talking about something people don't want, the powers that be don't want you talking about, they just do this kind of stuff. So you got dropped off at the same time I did, I think.
No, I was thrown out of the show before you were thrown out, and then we both wound up outside the show and not able to get back in it, and you couldn't even get into your own show.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, we can maybe we don't have hardly any time. Dave Hodges in the Common Sense Show had an interesting scenario, a Red Dawn invasion from Central and South America, the invasion of the United States. Now, we do know that there are, when I was up in Canada, I was told by a number of people that there were huge contingent troops way up in Queensland, that Canada had made a deal, evidently, either with China or Russia or whatever, and they had a bunch of troops, and we've heard that there are a bunch of troops down in Mexico as well, getting ready for the invasion of the United States. Have you heard any more about that at all?
Really haven't. You know, what was so interesting was Red Elk had so much information about that invasion, especially from the South, you know, that he wanted to share with, well, let's just say federal people, and they did not want to talk to Red Elk. And, of course, he saw a lot of that, and, of course, it's gone now, but Red Elk and you know, even Henry Gruver, who's very seriously ill now, I don't know, you know, if he's going to be able to last much longer or not, but he's very ill and has almost died a couple of times in the last couple of weeks.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know. We've got all kinds of things going on. Now, we were talking about that stone, and the rabbis are taking this very, very seriously. And that means we probably should as well, because they're not stupid, and they understand the Old Testament very well. And for them to quote from Scripture that a stone shall fall from the wall, and it's happened at exactly the right time for the end of days to occur, boy, that's kind of deadly, don't you think?
Well, I do, and on top of that, Stuart, and we didn't get a chance to talk about, maybe we can do it on another show, about Barry Rothman's new Torah code, but, you know, Barry Rothman is running a lot of Torah code information still. Pretty much the ones in Israel have gone totally silent. I know Professor Harlick is working with Rothman, but Rips and Glazerson and a lot of those, I find it interesting, Stuart, and would like your opinion. I find it really telling that after this pivot that you and I talked about, and what all's happened in Israel, the Torah codes for like 2019 and on are silent. They're not saying anything.
Yeah, and there may be a very good reason for that. It's sort of called Daniel's 70th week, or the tribulation period. You know, we were getting all kinds of Bible codes out of Israel from Eli Rip and Glazerson, and all of a sudden it kind of went silent. And we didn't get anything for a long time, and now what we're getting is very, very sparse. And I just think it's strange, and that they know something.
Something that's interesting, and I know we don't have much time, but something that's interesting about the Torah codes and where they turned off. Remember this last year, which they're actually going to start a new year, I guess, in September in Israel. But the year we're in, remember they were getting a lot of Torah codes, and the Messiah started popping up. The name Messiah here, there, and everywhere started popping up, and then they went silent.
Yeah. And, of course, over there, they say they have religious freedom, and in some degrees they do, but there's still a lot of hostility against the concept of Jesus Christ being the Messiah. They're still waiting their Messiah, and their Messiah is basically a political person, and who will allow Israel to eventually, I guess, lead the world. And they're jumping the gun because that's not supposed to happen until the millennial reign. But they're going to try and do it now. You'll find that in the Old Testament, too, where they attempt to do it, but it fails. And it doesn't work the way they think it would work. Closing in on the stone, this occurred the day after the fast of Tisha B'Av, which commemorates the destruction of the two Jewish temples. The strange occurrence, coupled with its timing, led many to assign a spiritual significance to the falling stone. Isn't that interesting?
Oh, it absolutely is, Stuart. It just absolutely is. You know, there's so much happening now involving the Middle East and Jerusalem and, you know, the temple, the wall, all this kind of stuff. We've really got to be very tuned in so we don't miss some of these things because they're happening every day now.
Yeah, they said and this stone, which I think is extremely significant, had amazing Torah significance. Rabbi Fish noted that the term, and I can't pronounce it, Western Wall, in the Hebrew numerology is equal to the current Hebrew year 5778.
Wow.
Isn't that something?
Oh, that's incredible, Stuart.
Yeah, and the stone fell from the 9th level.
So there's your. Well, Stuart, if you add up the 3.6 earthquake in the Dead Sea this morning, that was a 9 also.
Yep, it sure was. Well, anyway, I guess we're at the end, so thanks for listening. I apologize for being bounced. Nothing we can do about it. Anyway, good night, folks, and we'll set up something else here as soon as we can. Good night, everyone.